The jungle had been whispering its warning for hours. A deep, rumbling growl from the heavens echoed through the dense canopy. The scent of rain, thick and foreboding, clung to the air like an unshakable omen. But Mother Tiger was too busy watching her cubs to worry about the storm. 3 tiny bundles of striped fur tumbled in the soft earth near their den, wrestling and pouncing, their high-pitched chuffs filling the air with innocent joy. The river, their only source of water, murmured lazily nearby, its surface calm. But that calm would not last. The monsoon was coming. Then it struck, like a beast awakening from its slumber. The sky cracked open, releasing torrents of rain that hammered the jungle floor. The wind lashed the treetops, sending a chorus of rustling leaves and snapping branches into the storm. Thunder roared like the call of an unseen predator, shaking the very ground beneath them. Mother Tiger tensed. She knew this was no ordinary rain. With a flick of her tail, she called her cubs closer. They hesitated only a moment before scampering toward her, sensing the shift in her demeanor. She nuzzled each one, reassuring them while scanning the forest with sharp amber eyes. Then she heard it. A new sound, one that sent ice into her veins. The river was rising. It started as a distant roar, barely audible over the storm. But Mother Tiger knew that sound. It was the voice of a monster, one that swallowed trees, land, and anything in its path. The river was no longer the gentle, winding lifeline of the jungle. It had transformed into a raging force, swollen with unrelenting rain, charging forward with the fury of 1,000 stampeding beasts. And her cubs were too close to its path. Mother Tiger bolted toward the den, nudging and urging her young forward. But the jungle had turned against them. The ground was slick with mud, and the thick undergrowth clung to their tiny legs, slowing them down. Then came the first warning. A crack, loud, sharp. A tree, its roots loosened by the sodden earth, snapped and crashed down just feet from them. A brutal reminder, there was no time to waste. She let out a deep growl, herding her cubs forward. But the flood was faster. The ground trembled beneath her paws. Then, the river exploded into view. Where there had once been a narrow, winding stream, there was now a monstrous, swirling mass of water, churning with debris, branches, uprooted trees, even carcasses. And the worst part? It was coming straight for them. Before she could react, before she could even let out a warning growl, a powerful surge of water ripped through the jungle. It hit like a wall, knocking Mother Tiger off her feet, tossing her like a fallen leaf. She clawed at the ground, fighting for purchase, but the river was stronger. Then, a shriek, not from her, from one of her cubs. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she twisted in the water, eyes wild with terror. She barely had time to process what was happening before she saw it. One of her cubs, a tiny, helpless ball of striped fur, being dragged downstream by the current. No, no, no. With a powerful kick of her hind legs, she surged forward, muscles burning with desperation. The river roared around her, fighting to steal her breath, but she would not lose her cub. She wouldn't let the river win. The world had shrunk to a single, desperate mission: reach her cub. She fought against the current, her powerful limbs slicing through the water. Debris battered her from all sides, a tangle of branches and broken jungle threatening to drag her down. But she ignored it all. Her cub was floundering, struggling, sinking. With one final push, she lunged, teeth closing around the scruff of her cub's neck. Victory. For a split second, relief surged through her veins. But the river wasn't done. It was still pulling them, dragging them away from the safety of the jungle, deeper into the unknown. She had to get out. Now, kicking with every ounce of strength left in her body, she angled toward the nearest solid ground. a twisted cluster of roots jutting from a partially submerged tree. It was their only hope, one chance. She swam harder, feeling her cub's tiny body go limp in her jaws. Exhausted, but alive. With a final surge, she leapt, claws outstretched, and caught the roots. Her claws sank deep into the wood. She held on, muscles straining, the river still raging beneath her. The cub dangled from her jaws, whimpering weakly. She pulled and pulled, and finally, she climbed out. They collapsed onto the tree's exposed roots, gasping for air, the rain still pounding around them. But they weren't safe yet. Where were the other two? Her heart clenched. She lifted her head, scanning the riverbank. Fear clawed at her as she spotted them. Trapped. The last two cubs were huddled together on a shrinking patch of dry land, surrounded by the rising flood. The ground beneath them was crumbling, and at any moment, it would be gone. She had to go back. She set her first cub down, giving it one last reassuring nuzzle before plunging back into the raging current. This time, there was no hesitation, only fire. The river howled, clawing at her with its relentless pull, but she powered through. One cub, then the other. They were her world, and she would tear through the storm itself to get to them. She reached them just as the ground beneath them vanished. One cub slipped first. The second followed. Mother Tiger's instincts roared to life. She lunged, snapping up one cub in her jaws and grabbing the second with her massive paw. The water tried to wrench them away, but she refused to let go. This time, she had them both. With every muscle screaming in defiance, she fought her way back, dragging her cubs through the chaos. And then, she saw it. A massive fallen log, caught against the roots of a tree, creating a natural bridge to higher ground. It was their only way out. Mother Tiger pushed forward, her legs trembling with exhaustion. She hauled herself onto the log, claws digging in, her cubs whimpering but safe. One step at a time, she moved. The log shuddered beneath them, but she did not stop. And finally, they reached solid ground. She collapsed, shielding her cubs with her body as the storm raged on. But the river, the relentless, unforgiving river, had lost. She had won. When the storm finally passed, the jungle was unrecognizable. Trees had fallen. The river had carved new paths through the earth, and the world smelled of damp earth and survival. But Mother Tiger cared for none of it. Her cubs, weak but alive, huddled beside her, their tiny bodies pressed against her warmth. She licked each one, her deep purring hum filling the air with reassurance. The river had tried to take them, but she was their mother. And nothing, not storms, floods, or even the fury of nature itself, could take her cubs from her. She was the protector, she was the warrior, she was the Mother Tiger, and the jungle would remember her name.